don't know how much you heard of this story that I was talking about, Johnny Million, about this
I don't
fella
know either.
who murdered his wife and voted for Trump on her behalf.
Oh my.
Yeah. Yes. I won't recap too much for the who's at home, but in this particular case, this fellow's wife went missing on Mother's Day. He pleaded like Scott Peterson on the news, and oh my God, please bring our wife back. And the girls miss their mom, yada yada. Turns out she's dead, and she didn't die on a bike ride. She died very close to the back corner of the house near the back door. And 5 months after she went missing, obviously he'd been a person of interest. If you watched my comedy show last night, you know what a big fan I am of that phrase. But as a person of interest, it turned out 5 months after she went missing, she voted by mail.
Oh.
Yeah, from her house. And interestingly
Good for
enough,
her.
Yeah, I mean, way to do your civic duty even after you've disappeared.
Yeah.
So over the course of this, I mean, this is the standout voter fraud story that can be found. All Arizona looking for shoots of bamboo and signs that the Chinese attacked our elections through machinery that isn't hooked up to the internet, no matter how many times they say it, and the garbage that's going on there. And the fact that if Democrats conducted an audit like these folks are doing, with like just hiring Democratic activists, people who are hell-bent on undoing the presidency of, if people had done this on Trump's win, having blue pens with them instead of red pens, during the entire first 5 days of their audit, meaning they could change the actual function of the ballot. They could actually alter ballots, or when they made a duplicate one, they could change the vote itself. If Democrats did any of that stuff, they would ask for a nullified election starting over, right? I mean, just without question.
It's perpetual double standard, perpetual.
Yes, and in the case of the Arizona audit, it isn't even that it gets more sinister each time you hear about it, which it kind of does. It gets goofier.
Yeah, dopier.
Let's understand that they are taking pictures of every ballot, and storing them God knows where. They wanted to do canvassing, meaning that they wanted the right to look at who voted for who. Not just did you vote, which is fine, which is what you do in a normal canvass, in any kind of situation where, that's why they want to do an audit instead of a recount. In the recount, you go to somebody's house, and you go, did you vote? And they go, yes. And you go, thank you, check, and they leave.
Right.
Any of the canvassing for that. In the audit that they want to do, what they want to do is, did you vote? Yes. For who? And the person has to tell this rando activist nutcase who works for cyber ninjas, but only part-time. The rest of the time, they're part-time insurrectionists. Some of these folks actually were present on the 6th at the Capitol, and they are now leafing through ballots in Arizona and expecting to be thought of as impartial judges of a fair and free election. It's beyond. I mean, it's so absurd, it nullifies any concern one would have. That, like, even my concerns that they had these blue pens and that they were messing with it, and that they absolutely, all of them, have come from the long line of, well, it ain't lying if you do it for Jesus. You know what I mean? If you're lying for Jesus, then it's
Machiavellian for Jesus.
That's right. It's not really a lie, because you're trying to bring about, the resurrection and the redemption, and therefore, so that, I mean, honestly, there's people who live like that of all religions. But for the record, there's a big group of those folks on the Republican side who any lie is okay and justified by that very fact, right? And so we know that they're amongst that crowd in Arizona. We know that they were using blue pens for the first 5 days of this audit until they were called out by an election observer who's a reporter in Arizona and went, yeah, that's illegal, and you can alter ballots. And they went, oh, okay. And then it took them another 24 hours to change out the pins. So why is no one's ever going to take anything, that very thing nullifies it. It's like Rudy Giuliani and the laptop. The very fact that Rudy Giuliani has this laptop and has had it in his possession and is an enemy of the current president and believes he should have never been in office and he's got dementia, he's part of the greatest crime family ever, all this lunacy that Rudy Giuliani believes. The fact that he had this laptop in his possession, besides the fact that it's completely phony, for the record, if it were real, if it was real evidence of real crimes, the fact that it was in his possession for so long nullifies it in a court of law. There is no way you could ever use this.
No.
And the same thing is true of the Arizona audit. There is no way they can take whatever they find and actually go, and by the way, they're not going to find anything. They're going to go, well, we did look, we have some concerns, and there were some discrepancies, like maybe because you can't count. Let's look at your paperwork. Let's see how you filled out stuff. How about we audit your audit? How about we look at Cyber Ninja's machinery? How about we, as the public, get to
and they've
audit?
Never audited anything, ever.
Yeah, right. Well, that's because they're not auditing. It's at best corporate espionage, if not foreign espionage, because they're acting on behalf of foreign actors who want a good, solid forensic look at the inside of our voting machines, so that they can break into them. Like, that's why you don't post it. That's why that whole Mike Lindell nonsense about why don't they, if you don't want to do that, then why don't you just post the whole thing? People can just look at it. Well, because it's proprietary software that the inner workings of it, the code of it, is part of the security that protects its integrity. And if you just post it, yeah, Johnny in our chat room saying it's not an audit, it's a fraud. So this is why, like I have no concern. I have never been concerned about the Hunter Biden laptop because it always stunk of fraudulent garbage for me, and a mix of reality and fantasy, which is what the Russians do. They get a hold of your real email account, then they stuff stuff that will make you look bad into it, and then they mix it all together, and then they release a chunk of it through WikiLeaks or DC Leaks or something like that, and you're like, and you can't, if you go on and go, if anybody does this and you go, oh, okay, they get your, let's say any person listening to the sound of my voice, some fraudulent actor, a business that is you're in competition with, you're running a political campaign, a foreign actor, whatever it is, gets a hold of your email account. And then they start monkeying with it. They start putting stuff in there to make it look like you said things you didn't, to create the illusion of crimes and stuff. The only way that you can fully refute it is to show the entire world your actual entire email folder. It makes you gut yourself in front of the world with all your normal information, which is, by the way, not a problem for a lot of people, but you have to go through a redaction process for everybody that you send an email to that doesn't want their information out, all the mixed stuff, security elements of where people are going to be on certain dates that have nothing to do with you, especially at that level, right? So in terms of, be it John Podesta and Hillary, or be it, Hunter Biden going out and saying, yeah, that's my email, that's real, or that's not, saying that is not from my email account, like, well, let me see the email sent on that day, and then that's the slippery stuff. That's why nobody does that. Nobody actually, whenever, I don't care who it is, if it's Amazon or anybody with a Google account, David Petraeus didn't do it when he was hacked. There's a reason you don't do that, because your only solution is to gut yourself in front of the world and throw everything that you have, every correspondence you have, and by the way, the correspondence of everyone you talk to out to the world, right? If you hold back any emails, that's the one, right?
Right.
So that's the issue. That's always going to be the issue, and that's why it's such an effective PR attack on people, even if it's not useful in a court of law. None of this is useful in a court of law. And as a matter of fact, the fact that you use it, any attempt to use it in a court of law, like if any of the WikiLeaks stuff was ever used in hearings, they could not be verified. It would be you'd see them going through chunks of it. Is this true or is this not true? And everybody who does it would deny its existence or ignore it for that very reason that I just told you. And the same thing is true as if you were on trial and someone got a hold of your laptop and they brought it into court. And I got his laptop and it's got all the info on it. Your court-appointed lawyer for $10 would go, Your Honor, motion to dismiss. There's no chain of evidence on this. This is random. This just, where'd you get it? I found it at a bus stop. Right. Okay, sure. That's great. Okay. It's goofy. So the interesting thing is, what isn't like that is financial transactions. What is not like that is money changing hands in those terms, because A, it's open to, tax officials looking at it. You don't necessarily have a privacy rule in terms of the government with those kind of things, especially if you're paying someone for work. There's a level of like gifts. You can give a certain amount as a gift, and that's all you have to say. Once you surpass that amount, it starts, getting questionable. And if you're passing a lot of little gifts to people all the time, what's that? And you're, let's just say, for the sake of argument, a sitting U.S. congressman, then it gets a little squirrely. What are those gifts for? Especially when I got to tell you, the name of the article, and things are getting worse for Gaetz all the time. The name of this article in the Daily Beast is Representative Matt Gaetz snorted cocaine with escort who had no-show government job. I mean, like all of that sums up the antithesis of the perceived notion of what the Republican Party was. If you can think of a total waste government job, they think every government job is a no-show job, apparently. But we got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. I want to dive into some of this because, this story has depth to it, and it's getting worse all the time. And Monday, apparently, is when this plea deal comes out fully from Joel Greenberg. We'll talk about it on the other side of the break. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, mega worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT820.com. And of course, the show is available as the Hal Sparks Radio podcast, mega worldwide on the Sexy Liberal Podcasting Network. We'll be back. I want to say for the record that Johnny and I, in discussing the wonderful world of Matt Gaetz, I don't think any of us are surprised that that Matt Gaetz was not telling Tucker Carlson the truth when he went on this. And I just sent Johnny this Daily Beast article that just came out that references stuff that the New York Times has seen. It's some gnarly stuff. So the article. Witnesses revealed the wild scene at an after-party for a GOP fundraiser in Orlando. Now, let's not be surprised that the idea of their idea of fun on the Republican side is what they think liberals do all the time. Let's be abundantly clear. Like their dream party is sort of in their mind like the Playboy Mansion circa 1978 or something like that. That they, in their own, heart of hearts, go, oh, that would have been sweet. That would have been so sweet. So, okay. So every time they do this, every time I speed read some of this stuff, I start to say Rep Matt Gaetz because they don't say representative. I always go to Rat Gaetz. I do it every time. And it's kind of a dead giveaway.
Has nothing to do with his face.
No. He attended a 2019 GOP fundraiser in Orlando. His date that night was someone he knew well, a paid escort and amateur Instagram model. Amateur Instagram model. Isn't everyone an amateur Instagram model?
Until they get paid.
Yeah, what are you going to... okay. Who led a cocaine-fueled party after the event, according to two witnesses. By the way, those witnesses were college girls under the age of 21. So beyond the idea, well, we'll get to that. The Florida congressman's one-time wingman, Joel Greenberg, will identify that escort to investigators as one of more than 15 young women Gaetz paid for sex, according to a source familiar with the investigation. But what distinguishes this woman, Megan Zalonka, is that she, and don't run to Instagram and look her up right now because her account is gone. I can smell it. I can smell your fingers getting ready, folks. Is that she turned her relationship with Greenberg into a taxpayer-funded no-show job that earned her an estimated $7,000 to $17,500, according to 3 sources and corresponding government records. Yeah, it's official. This is beyond just the realm of because Joel Greenberg said so, right?
Right.
On October 26, 2019, Gaetz attended the Trump Defender Gala. Man,
I bet that was awesome.
I'm personally shocked. I will be shocked if we don't find out that Barry Lee Morphew was like serving drinks there, like the bartender in The Shining.
I'm betting that that there was not a single arcade game of Defender in that whole room.
And that's heartbreaking.
It is. Not even Berserk, nothing.
That's the game that makes me believe that the Turing test, by the way, is complete garbage, because you play one game of Defender and you're like, this machine is alive and it knows exactly how to kill me. It's like it passes the Turing test just as you're going, oh my God, it's following me. That's it. It's the scariest thing ever, especially when it's taken a human hostage, and so it's horrifying. Yeah. It's horror. It's 8-bit horror. Okay, so. Fundraiser, and he was the featured speaker at said thing, so obviously he got to go to the good parties. 2 witnesses present recall friends reconvening at Gaetz's hotel room for an after party. It was in his room. I can't tell you how this guy continually peaks the dumb meter. You guys know that I hate it when people can't even lie well. Because Hal
won't even let me visit him in his hotel room when he's in town.
No, absolutely not. I bought one of those things you jam under the door, just in case. You know, those metal crowbar-looking things that latch in there?
And I'm outside, like, licking the spyglass, going, I know you're in there.
I know you're in there. And I'm like, I'm not. I'm under a different name. So, okay. So one of those witnesses distinctly remembers Zelonka, which is just great. That sounds like a video game, right next to Defender. I could never afford to win the game of Zelonka. Pulling cocaine out of her makeup bag, rolling a bill of cash, how incredibly cliche, and joining Gaetz in snorting the cocaine. While the Daily Beast could not confirm that Gaetz and Zelonka had sex that night, 2 sources said the pair had an ongoing financial relationship in exchange for sex. She was just one of the many pieces of arm candy he had. Excuse me. It's not arm candy if you're paying for it. That's just an escort, okay? Arm candy is the idea that you have trophy girlfriends or someone that looks good on your arm that just shows up because they like to go to cool places and you can take them. That's arm candy, okay? I've seen a lot of it in my career in the business, from beards to best friends to actual supermodels who just wanted to go to the event and needed somebody to go with. Arm candy goes both ways. It's a very flexible term. If they're paid to be there, they're no longer arm candy. Okay. And
when Hal was doing Queer as Folk, I begged to be his beard.
Yeah, exactly. But you refused to grow one, and I was like, no, you can't. She was okay. So said one of the sources familiar with the encounters between Gaetz and Zelonka. The congressman, who had declared that he never paid for sex, wrote off the stay at the hotel as a campaign expense, which means his donors paid for the room where he snorted cocaine and had sex with escorts. An amateur. I guess they didn't post the pictures of it on Instagram, so she still remained an amateur. Is that how we're going with this? The U.S. Secret Service, which initiated the Greenberg investigation over allegations that Greenberg used county resources to mine Bitcoin. This is how this started. Because let's not... Yeah, so apparently Joel Greenberg, this is how there was a bunch of stuff, but the ones that raised it to the federal level beyond just state stuff like, oh, we got a sketchy local, tax commissioner down here. The fact that he was using state funds to do something across state lines that had to do with money pulled in the Secret Service, because the Secret Service, as many people know, and much to the chagrin of Donald Trump, is an arm of Treasury. The Secret Service works for Treasury. So one of the joys of my life is knowing that Donald Trump is being followed around by Treasury agents for the rest of his life. That's amazing. So, all right. So they do this Federal prosecutors with the Middle District of Florida would not say if investigators have questioned Zelonka. Greenberg's attorney declined to comment, citing attorney-client privilege. Gaetz's office did not respond to a request for comment. However, his hired public relations firm, Logan Circle Group, did issue the statement. Congressman Gaetz won't be commenting on whether he dated or didn't date specific women. Dude, nobody's asking about who you dated. No one. Nobody cares. If you dated these women, they would have been arm candy. You didn't. Right. And the idea that you call them dates, like you're using the lingo of like car hopping prostitutes, is ridiculous.
Yeah.
The privacy of the women living private lives should be protected, he said. Well, she's an amateur Instagram model. I don't know that qualifies. Well, I guess she took her account offline, so we'll see. Harlan Hill, the president of that firm, did not address questions about cocaine, the party, or the fundraiser. So, okay, fine. After repeated calls and messages to Zelonka over the last 5 weeks, her attorney told the Daily Beast on Thursday night that she is, quote, is not speaking to any media outlet. A criminal defense lawyer said the allegations were not accurate, but would not elaborate further. It was not a bill. It was a CVS receipt that we snorted the cocaine through, and it was stepped on. It was garbage. It wasn't enough cocaine to get out. Like, I don't know why I let Matt buy it. So, federal investigators are exploring Greenberg's alleged role as the congressman's go-to contact for arranging paid sexual encounters, according to 3 sources with direct knowledge of the probe. This is checking all the Watergate boxes. If you watch Watergate, one of the things that all the president's men, the one thing they were always like, they wanted 3 sources. That's when they could go to print. They've got them in spades. They do 3 sources for each angle of this story. They have 5 sources running the entire thing. Zelonka, who is an amateur fashion model and the communications director for American Medical Marijuana Physicians Association, received $4,000 on Venmo from Greenberg during his first year in office in 2017 in $500 installments for other stuff, which he misspelled as oral stuff, which might have been on his way to oral stuff, and then he backed out of it. $1,000 for pool. On a single day in November. He paid her $500 for food and another $500 for appetizers. He also, he gave her this contract paying her $3,500 a month for a management of digital content and production of social media engagements, which is sort of true since he was dumb enough to have his Venmo public.
Yeah.
But they got $3,500 from the Seminole County taxpayer January and April, and at other points in between, they were later flagged as questionable or unaccounted for funds because the financial officer in charge of doing the audit literally wrote, "Do not know what is for," on the paperwork. And I don't know how. Can I read this? Can I even say? I don't know if I can. I think I can because the word is in the Bible, in the Old Testament.
Okay.
Zelonka also features prominently in a tranche of Greenberg's Venmo transactions, which include his payments to more than 40 women. Those women received hundreds of dollars at a time for memo items such as salad, lemons, and ass, according to financial records. I guess they were Democrats, so it's a donkey reference, we'll just assume. The Daily Beast spoke to 12 of those women who all said the payments were at least in part because Greenberg intended to have sex with them. There was a whole tranche of emails and texts back and forth between Greenberg and Gaetz, about he's going to introduce these women to his very famous and rising friend who's in Florida politics, meaning Gaetz. One of the women, all of them 19-year-old students attending nearby Florida State University at the time, said Greenberg and a number of well-connected Republican men bought them drinks at the hotel bar, knowing how old the students were. So they contributing to the delinquency of minors. They are buying alcohol for 19-year-olds. They are plying underage women. These are women, but they are under the age of 21.
It'd be a lot cooler if you did.
Right, totally. With alcohol. And then, according to these women, bought them drinks at the hotel bar, knowing how old the students were, then led them to a room furnished with, quote, a huge pile of coke. The men wanted to have sex with the teens and implied that Zelonka, who was in the room, would join in. One of the women recalled when the teens refused. Oh, God, that's what a this dude. Greenberg, Zelonka, and another man went into a connected room to have sex. Another man. Who's that? According to one of the former students and screenshots of conversation between women reviewed by the Daily Beast, Zelonka had signed her marketing contract weeks before the encounter, and financial records show that Greenberg paid for a flight to Tallahassee with Seminole County taxpayer money around that time. And of course, there's a picture of Gaetz with Zelonka and another woman, Savara Hastings, who both work at the American Medical Marijuana Physicians Association as basically PR executives for that thing. So they basically rubbed elbows with him. We have to take a break, but my girlfriend was pointing out that, like, Matt Gaetz used to be pretty chubby. Used to be a fairly chubby dude. And then these stories broke about how much cocaine he's been doing over the last few years, and the pounds have just melted away. I don't recommend it as a diet plan by any means, but speed and stimulants tend to do that to a person. No word on whether or not they give you demonic eyebrows, which apparently they have in the case of Matt Gaetz over time. And then of course
pointy little teeth.
Oh God, I mean, honest to God, he looks like he's someone who will shapeshift in a movie. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Parks Radio program, mega worldwide on WCPT Radio. More after this with the Family Values Party. Remember that, and the party that accuses everyone else of voter fraud.